hello there, and if you're listening to this on the day this podcast comes out, we're sort of jumping the gun a bit. Look, have a great Christmas, and we'll see you on the other side as we deal with the leftovers. If you ask me, why don't we meet the chefs who are going to tell us what to do with all our leftovers. Nikki Webster is a returning guest from our One Pot Meals episode. She's a plant-based chef and founder of Rebel Recipes, which has been the forefront of the plant-based sector for over 6 years. She has 2 best-selling books, Rebel Recipes and Be More Vegan. And I think she's got another one coming out she'll tell us about in a little bit. Laura Gaga, aka Reduction Raider. She's a returning panelist on the show, and she's known for being an expert at conjuring dishes from the reduced section at supermarkets. She's also a columnist for the Vegan Life magazine. Did you know the podcast has a magazine? Technically, I don't think it is that way round. And Day Radley is the founder of the Vegan Chef School. The school's created over 100 vegan chefs to date. The Vegan Chef School offers courses to help further the knowledge of keen vegan foodies, teach them to cook tasty dishes at home, and help propel them into becoming professional vegan chefs. Panelists, welcome. So the first question I want to ask all of you is quite simply, what's the tastiest vegan food you've eaten recently? What I wish it had been in my case was more caffeine. Laura, what about you?
Right, well, I'm living my best life at the moment because I arrived in Dubai yesterday.
What?
I know. Give me a fit to travel when I'm gone. So, yeah, I'm in Dubai on holiday and we've been...
That would explain why we just lost our connection to Laura.
Yeah.
Okay, Nikki, what's the best thing you've eaten lately?
Well, sadly I've been eating quite a lot of my own food recently because I'm sort of full on book recipe development.
That doesn't sound sad. That sounds fantastic.
Well, it is and it isn't because it's fine, but I'm kind of testing the same things over and over again. So I'm just so happy when I get not to eat my own food. So I went out for lunch the other day and I had just a lovely little cafe and I had this really nice sort of mushroom dish with some flatbreads and it was just amazing. But I think it was mostly because it wasn't my own food, just for a change.
There needs to be some kind of,
though.
for development chefs, that you all need to kind of live in a commune of some kind, so that you can just pass around your things to each person.
It would be good. It would be good.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I do try to share mine as much as possible because otherwise I can't physically eat all this food.
You'd be amazed. I'm pretty accomplished. I'll come round. I'll literally be a sort of compost bin. Yeah,
Please
it's not a problem. Dave, what about you?
So recently I made Ferrero Rocher, obviously vegan, but also gluten-free as well. So they were amazing because I haven't had them for, over 27 years. Long time, a really long time. But I love that combination of hazelnut and chocolate. I just think it's amazing, and the crunch of them as well. So I just had to make my own. Of course, it's the perfect season to make stuff like that. So yeah, they were lovely, and I had those, breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Sure.
For a day.
Why pause? Don't pause. Just. Yeah, that sounds fantastic. Laura, welcome back from Dubai.
Did I go missing?
We lost you for a second now, I'm afraid. Did you? Were you like, wow, that anecdote went with stony silence? No, I'm sorry, we lost you. We weren't ghosting you. So what? Yes, what is it? What are you eating in Dubai?
Okay, so we've been to Soul Greens. Because I keep calling it things like Soul Bowl and Soul Garden and whatever else, but Soul Greens, and had beetroot and quinoa burgers there, spinach and mushroom burgers there, and and just things like guacamole. They do a vegan mayo with bread, which was lovely. And this morning for breakfast went to Bounty Beets and had scrambled tofu with greens and this basil hummus on toast and chia and overnight oats. Yeah, really nice. And because I'm staying with friends, last night we just did things had a look what was in the fridge and had falafel wraps with salad and hummus and just picky things like that I like as well. But yeah, I'm definitely putting myself around Dubai might sound a bit...
I hear there's a lot of that. Yeah.
might sound a bit questionable, but in a strictly vegan way.
Sure.
I was in Dubai about a month ago, so I've been to Soul Green as well. It's very nice.
Wow. So
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? I had a smoothie there as well, I've just remembered. Yeah, that was nice, with papaya and banana and some other stuff.
Lovely atmosphere as well.
Is
really.
there quite the vegan scene out there?
There seems to be, doesn't there? It really sort of seems to be picking up.
See, you save a few pennies on your little yellow reduction stickers here and there, Laura. And
Jake,
suddenly you're living it up in Dubai.
Yeah, there's Seva. We went to a supermarket yesterday and they've got reductions, just a few. So, we've got a vegan barbecue coming up this week.
Amazing. Sounds
Exciting.
good. Sounds good. Right, let's crack on. This is all about leftovers. Joan says, "Hi Jake, I just wanted to say I absolutely loved listening to the World Tour episodes. Yes, go back and listen to those if you haven't already. They're really, really eye-opening for kind of world cuisine. This podcast has also helped my neighbour with her new vegan journey. Oh, hi neighbour! And how thrilling. Such a good resource for what you can do with plant-based food. Oh, that's really thrilling to hear. Thanks, Joan. My question for this episode is, what's the yummiest thing your guests have made from leftovers? It's a great opening question. Day, let's start with you.
Well, with leftovers, my go-to is a frittata using gram flour, because you can just like chuck anything in there, even like leftover rice. Like quite often, like we end up with leftover rice, and loads of like spices and herbs, and the herb stalks as well. You can just like pop all of that in, and just anything that you've got and make it into a frittata, which I think just looks like really, really pretty, and it's really, really tasty. So it's like super flexible.
Yeah. So that's just making up a batter with gram flour, chickpea flour.
Yeah. Essentially, you've got to use a good non-stick pan. That's about it. You can, if it's quite thick, you can pop it under the grill for the last bit of cooking. Maybe put a bit of nooch on it as well. So
Always.
It's super tasty.
Always nooch. Top tip. Nikki, what about you?
Well, firstly, I just think leftovers are amazing anyway, just themselves. They're so underrated.
Yeah.
So I'm always really excited. I mean, I've always got leftovers, anything. Also, I incorporate them into so many things. But one of my favourite things to do, because I always seem to have sort of something spiced or curry, is to actually have curry and hummus on toast. It might sound a bit weird, but I love that.
No, that sounds great.
Yeah, that's so good. And like Day, turn everything into sort of frittatas or pancakes and things, because you can literally just sort of bung everything in and it's delicious.
That's a great idea. I walked past a place yesterday. It had a token vegan burger, and it was covered in hummus. And I really went off on one with the people I was about to say, we don't want hummus on everything, But curry and hummus is a great idea. Not a burger. Anyway.
I would.
Okay, it's good to know. If you come round, I'll know what to serve you. Laura,
Please.
What about you?
I mean, I do want hummus on everything, and that curry on hummus toast, oh my God.
That's a really great idea.
That actually sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think leftovers is the whole point of cooking, really. And But talking of curries, recently I was at a friend's and we'd got a takeout Indian, and she gave me this one container left of the remaining rice, and I sort of thought, well, what am I going to do with that? But she was looking at me all expectingly, sort of saying, oh, well, you'll have to sort of make something with it. And the next day I did just make a fried rice with it. So I had these chickenless pieces and put some tandoori spices in there, and even used, the little pots of the onion chutney that they give you when you get an Indian, and added that in there, and some carrots from a friend's allotment, just spring onions as well, just anything I could find, and just did a fried rice. It was really nice. And it's incredible what you can do from sort of half a container of rice.
We're back to our stock answer on this podcast: frying. Always frying. Okay, there you go, Joan. Thanks for that question. Carol says, I used to make a turkey soup back in the day with my leftovers. Whew. Could I have a vegan soup to make the next day, please? Soup, of course, is considered by some as an acceptable substitute for actual food. Nikki, do you do soups?
I do a lot of soups, but it's just like the classic sort of anything, leftovers question. You can turn everything into a soup. Yeah. Like you can turn everything into a dip, you can turn everything into a soup. So I think I'd probably just make a really nice, warming leftover veg and lentil soup. That would be my probably go-to.
Nice.
I might feel a bit like I've overindulged on Christmas Day, so I want it already. So I wanted, something nice and slightly healthier. I think that's what I'd go for. Loads of spices, of course.
Of course, definitely. Dave, what about you?
Well, I'll probably be making jackfruit turkey. So if there is any left over, I'd be making a soup from that.
Wow.
Definitely.
How do you make a jackfruit turkey?
It's so simple. So, like the pulled pork recipes using jackfruit, it's basically like that, but with gravy. It really like has the consistency of, those like bits of turkey that are left over the next day, covered in gravy. And you just need to like have a really, really nice gravy recipe.
Yeah.
So like I've got like a black bean gravy recipe that would work really, really well in therefore like, the jackfruit turkey soup. So I think that would be a nice thing because, then it's like as similar to what you used to have as possible, which is quite nice.
Yeah. I think all of that in the mix, jackfruit and black bean would be a really, really good soup. Laura?
We had jackfruit Wellingtons for Christmas last year.
Yeah, but they don't hold up in puddles.
Great for a festival. So I suppose again, just making use of whatever you've got left over, like parsnip soup. You could, like sometimes I make my own cranberry sauce, so you could top the soup with cranberry sauce. I'm thinking, like if you've got stuffing left over, you could do a stuffing dumpling soup. That'd be nice. I think, just getting really creative with what you have. So perhaps if you've got vegan cream, you could put that in. Carrot soup. Oh, you could do a Brussels sprout. I love Brussels sprouts. Could do a Brussels sprout soup.
Nice.
Yeah. Top tips.
Talking about stuffing, I know we're going slightly off the subject, but I made some really tasty stuffing muffins the other day.
Nice.
What? That's a great name. Stuffing muffins.
It's good, isn't it?
That's so good. It's one of those. That would get commissioned on the title. That's a classic. That's brilliant. I think you're right that there's that kind of I know Nigella Lawson, she calls it temple food when she wants to kind of go on a health kick, particularly after the kind of festive season. And those Thai flavors, like if you haven't got the time and you can't be bothered, some of those tom yum pastes that you just use to make a broth, some of those are vegan if you check. But I had like coconut milk or coconut milk powder. Again, check, because most of them have got milk powder in for no reason. But that's such a great thing to kind of make a soup taste rich and decadent if you're not into the whole temple thing, which I'm not. I'm in ruins. Right. Gemma says, I always seem to have roasties left over in my house, but I never really know what to do with them as reheated potatoes aren't great. Aren't they? If the panel could let me know what I can do with roast potatoes, that would be amazing. Thank you. Laura, let's start with you.
Well, I know that you've got a question coming up around bubble and squeak, so I think use your roasties and... I've got to gift me.
Yeah, well done. You're conflating the two. Well done. Here you go, Jennifer. Pay attention.
So I think put your roasties in bubble and squeak, because you can put whatever you want in bubble and squeak. I think the last bubble and squeak I made, I put like what I'd left of potato salad in bubble and squeak and just added things in there like swede. It was a beautiful colour actually. Rosemary, carrots, anything really. So yeah, but I would probably just eat roast potatoes cold, but if she doesn't want to do that, bubble and squeak.
I'm not going to judge you for that. I've done that.
You could have the cold roasties and put that in a potato salad. That would be nice.
Do you reckon?
Yes.
Because the oil could be a bit sort of, that sort of...
Okay.
Yeah,
I think that's not even a question. I think it'd be lovely.
Okay. I do trust you. Of course I trust you.
Good.
Always. Nikki.
Well, I would... I think there's so many ways you can use them, but I think I'd probably fry up some onions and loads of spices and either sort of mash them all up and then put them in a toasted sandwich, or use the same kind of mix and add some frozen peas, and make little aloo tikis with a nice mint dip or something.
That's a great idea. That whole kind of samosa thing, that's a great idea. Dave, what about you?
Well, so first of all, I'd have to question why the reheated potatoes aren't great, because if you cook them the right way, then they're absolutely phenomenal the next day. So first of all, we should probably tackle that. But anyway, if you wanted to make something different, then I'll go back to jackfruit, put it with some seaweed as well, and make some vegan fish cakes because they're good hot or cold. So they're suitable for a buffet, or if you're having a sit-down meal. And also they're not too heavy either. They're filling, but they're not as heavy as the Christmas Day dinner that you had, before. Yeah. So, I think that would be a good option. It's quite a nice, different way to use them as well.
That's a top tip. I know I've mentioned it before, and I think I get the company name wrong every time. I think it's TKC, the vegan cod fillet that they do that's frozen. It's so good for making fish cakes. If you can get hold of it, you'll find it in Asian supermarkets. There you go, Gemma, and there you go, Jennifer. I mean, let's touch upon the bubble and squeak. Jennifer wants to know what you put in it. Dave, what about you?
Well, apart from the usual stuff, I also add sun-dried tomatoes because it just has that kind of savouriness. Of course, instead of using bacon, using sun-dried tomatoes is a really good option. And also leftover Brussels sprouts. I think that they're great in bubble and squeak. So, I'd definitely add them. I mean, I always try to be careful with the Brussels sprouts that I don't overcook them, because that's usually why people don't like Brussels sprouts, because they've been overcooked. So, okay. You don't want to cook them for too long in the bubble and squeak.
Okay, top tip. And Nikki, what about you?
Well, similar really. I would put absolutely everything, and definitely the sprouts. But then I'd probably just try and inject a little bit more flavour, and you can do that in all sorts of different ways. You can add loads and loads of herbs, or I really like to add olives. Of course, you can put some, some vegan cheese. There's so many things. I'd probably just pack as much in there as possible.
Perfect. Thank you all. There you go. Some exotic bubble and olives is a great idea. Sarah says, I always make a chicken korma on Boxing Day, but I've promised my 2 vegan children I will make the curry vegan this year with no meat or dairy in sight. Can I have some help, please? Not sure where to start. Day, let's start with you.
Okay, so if I'm making a creamy curry, I always put in a good source of fat. So I like to use either coconut cream or blended cashews or both. And so I really love making South Indian curries in particular, using fresh curry leaves, mustard seeds, coconut and tinned tomatoes. And that combination works really, really well. So usually I make it with chickpeas, but you can use something like crumbled firm tofu if you want something with a meaty texture, because if you want something that's going to kind of mimic chicken in that way, then actually just torn apart crumbled firm tofu does that job very well. Or you could use some of the kind of mock chicken things as well. But yeah, I'd do that. And making up your own spice mixes as well is actually a lot easier than you think it's going to be. And I actually make them in big batches and then, store them so that I've got them to dip into, because I always think having quite a few different spices in there can just make it so much tastier. Asafoetida is one of my favourite spices. And it's the one ingredient that I add that makes it taste a lot more authentic.
I think I overdid that once. Is it quite bitter?
It's very easy to overdo it. I mean, the nickname of it is Devil's Dung. So you do have to go very, very carefully with it. But it's really, really pungent. A bit like onion, a bit like garlic. Okay. Really, really super tasty. But it takes your curries to the next level. Definitely your Indian curries.
Nice. Top tips. Laura?
Well, I guess it depends on what she's done for Christmas dinner. I suppose I'm wondering if she might have some seitan left over, if she was using that to make a mock turkey, so you could curry that. I mean, I'm of the mindset you could curry absolutely anything, so I would go with whatever vegetables you've got left over. Again, with the roast potatoes, you could add the roast potatoes and have an aloo. I think there's so many things that you could curry, and I think just sort of starting with whatever it is that you have.
Yeah. And Nikki?
Not not sure I can add to that, to be honest. I think if you're trying to, something like a chicken korma, I completely agree with Day. Maybe you want to emulate that really lovely creamy texture. So I'd absolutely go with, coconut cream or yogurt or cashews. I always love to add sort of contrasting fresh tomatoes, which I think works really well. And just don't be scared of spices. So sort of, reiterating what Dave said, really, I agree. But curry is the best. You can't go wrong.
I bet I could.
You couldn't.
Well, yeah. So, there you go, Sarah. I mean, it sounds to me like you know what you're doing. You can do this. You got this. Relax. Enjoy it. It'll be fine. Abby says, you see online these gorgeous charcuterie boards with grapes and cheeses and cold cuts of meat. I'm vegan and I would love to do a vegan version. Could I please have some advice on what to put on it and some no-nos of foods that don't go well together? Also, it doesn't necessarily need to be a cheese board. I just want a sharing board for everyone to enjoy. I really love this. This is a great question. Laura, let's start with you.
It is a really good question. I mean, I like things easy, so I think I would maybe focus on dips, like hummus and guacamole and crudités, some bread. But I guess it depends on how adventurous you want to be. You could make your own nut cheeses. Roasted veggies, I think, would be nice as well. So having sort of a tray of roasted veggies, but almost just leaving them to cool down as well and having on there. But I mean, you could do roasted chickpeas and nuts, crisp, fruit, veg. I mean, I think...
Yeah. I mean, don't do potatoes if Gemma's coming around because she'll lose her mind.
But I mean, I guess that's the great thing, isn't it, about charcuterie board, is that you can just throw everything on there. And I think if you've got a contrast of colours, it's all going to look lovely.
That's a nice point. Nikki, what about you?
Well, I don't think you can really put, in my personal opinion, it's all about just having a huge feasting cacophony of different colours and textures and flavours. So I don't think there's anything that could really be, you can't go wrong because more is more. So I'd go for dips, chutneys, vegan cheeses, fruits, pickles, olives, breads, crackers, everything.
Nice. And Dave, what about you?
Okay, so I think you need really great vegan cheese, which is, I mean, there are so many out there now. Yeah. So don't just use the yellow squares. They're really only good for sandwiches.
Yeah.
So do your research properly, look at reviews. Am I allowed to name some companies?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah? Okay, so New Roots and I Am Not Okay, which has an amazing name. They both do exceptional cheeses. And of course you can make your own also, but you need to find a really good kick-ass recipe. And so you could also include some interesting hummuses. So I know that
I believe the plural is humai. And perhaps a solitary biscotto.
But I would totally take it to the next level. So get something like smoked hummus, something that is, a bit different, like a bit more special.
Yeah.
And would you do that? Sorry, would you do like those smoked carrots? Like they do that take, didn't they, on salmon using smoked carrots? Would you do something like that?
Yeah, that would be lovely. I mean, for me, like with something like this, the cheese board, it needs to have a lot of intense flavours on it for me. So also, I always love including cornichons as well. And, they're a bit fancy and they're tiny, so they make you feel like a giant, which is always great in my book.
I don't know what they are.
They're very like baby gherkins, aren't they?
Yeah, they're basically baby gherkins. And also great oatcakes and crackers. And again, sun-dried tomatoes, which I absolutely love. Yeah. And I think that they're a good alternative, again, to cold cuts.
I mean, I personally I feel too much for the gherkin mothers when the cornichons are taken away. Their children, for God's sake. That's a really good call. I'd put in a shout for, I did this, I think in a previous podcast, but I'm telling you, man, salt-baked beets. You just, stir up tons of salt with a little bit of water so it's like wet sand. Pack your beetroot in it with the skin on, it's fine. And then bake them for like hours. And then when they're cool, peel them, slice them quite finely and drizzle them in like a really good quality oil of some kind, probably olive oil, and maybe like a little bit of lemon zest or something like that. And like you were saying, Dave, it gives you that intensity of flavour. I cannot be bothered with beetroot, all right? It's boring and it tastes like soil. But when you do that, it's got that thing that you were talking about, Laura, like the smoked salmon-y kind of thing. It's got that very intense flavour, and it's a different kind of texture note as well.
Yeah, you're going to need napkins with that one, though.
Yeah, you are going to need napkins, probably. Yeah. I mean, you haven't seen my dining room in the States. It's fine. Just leave it on the floor. Abby, have fun. Gianna says, my group this year is doing Friendmas, and it's a potluck where we all need to bring a dish. I would love some ideas on what yummy side dish I can bring. Awesome. Nikki, let's start with you.
Well, it's kind of not a side dish, but my favourite thing to make for like a party or to bring is like a dough ball wreath, and I suppose it's more of a starter, but it's just so fun and it looks so cool, and obviously you can just pick little bits of bread off, and it's so gooey and delicious, and some dips. So not really a side, but a sort of a kind of a sharing starter. That would be my offering.
That's a great idea. Day.
Well, it's a bit of a. There is so many options. Like the vegan food world is your vegan oyster. Yeah. But I wouldn't necessarily make a side dish unless I was expressly told to. I'd rather make an amazing centerpiece because I think that just kind of like, it looks a bit grander, and when you're making a spread, like it's nice to have, things on the table that look really like quite dramatic and quite beautiful.
Yeah.
And so recently I made a hazelnut crown, which is a take on a nut loaf, but it's made into a round shape. It's got a dip in the middle. It's got like walnuts in it, and loads of like herbs, but it's topped with roasted mini vegetables. So we've got radish, with its bright pink colour.
Please, not the cornichons again, please.
Not
please, God, Jay, please, the children. The children.
But it looks really bright and beautiful, which and to me, vegan food is all about like abundance and vibrancy and stuff like that. And I love, seeing dishes that communicate that to everyone. So I'd make something like that.
Nice. Hashtag dominate. Laura.
Could we do like a potluck podcast episode where we have everybody bring dishes and we'll record it in person? This episode is actually making me starving now.
Yeah. I'm now appointing you executive vice producer of the podcast, so carry on.
Right, I forgot what the question is. Okay, the side dish. I think using sort of whatever I had. So maybe things like a rice salad, a pasta salad. When I was actually staying with a friend in Florida, we did a meat-free Monday, and I made a beetroot hummus, and they loved it because it wasn't such a big thing out there as what it is here. So maybe sort of a colourful dip is something that's not too time-consuming, quite easy and easy to transport as well, and I think becomes a bit of a talking point.
Yeah, nice. Okay. Lucy says, I would like to keep this year's Christmas dinner on a budget with no waste, really. Can I have some tips for a fairly cheap meal? Thank you. Awesome. I love the idea of a bit of a frugal Yule. Day, what would you suggest?
Well, vegan meals tend to be cheaper anyway, although nuts are probably the most expensive ingredients in vegan Christmas food, and alcohol as well. So if you stay away from those. But for example, like a Wellington made for cooking, by the way.
I know, it's just nuts and alcohol. That's my life, really.
But yeah, something like a Wellington made with mushrooms, lentils, and pastry is very budget friendly and pretty easy to make. And the sides are really very cheap too. And, they have very little waste. Particularly with all of these, dishes that we've been mentioning throughout the show, you won't. There is very, very little waste that you would have from the veggies that we put on the side. But yeah, I think a Wellington made with mushrooms and lentils. You can use ready-made pastry, but to save a bit of money, you can also make your own, which is, really easy to make.
Yeah, and pennies, potentially. Great. Nikki.
Well, I agree. I mean, vegetables are very, very cost effective and also very delicious. So I'd really go to town on the side dishes, not should be, pushed to the side, but you can make vegetables amazing and delicious. So I'd, do hundreds of those, and then maybe a really lovely, like maybe lentil and roast veg bake as a centerpiece. Again, really economical, cheap, delicious, wholesome, some nice pickled cabbage. Really go to town with your sauces and do some nice maple glazing on your parsnips and just, celebrate the veg again.
Yeah. I mean, the veg are what make a roast dinner, really, aren't they? Anyway, so, and it's insane how cheap some vegetables are. Laura?
I'd start shopping in the reduced sections and picking up yellow sticker items early, for the stuff that's going to be reduced because it's, I don't know, they need to clear a shelf or it's on its best before date. Because, things like root vegetables, carrots, potatoes, they're going to last a good couple of weeks. There's so many things that you can freeze ahead of time. I would also say don't overbuy. I think all of us tend to overshop at Christmas, and I think it's sort of bearing in mind that essentially it's a roast dinner on one day.
Yeah.
And I think making use of your leftovers and thinking, pastry was mentioned earlier, you can freeze pastry. So I think sort of thinking about what you're going to eat and thinking about how you can eat it thereafter and freeze it if you need to. Because I think that's the difficult thing as well, isn't it? Because I think we tend to overeat at Christmas and then want it out of our sight, a few days later. So I guess there's so much waste that's generated. So I think sort of trying to have a long-term view as well, you might not want to keep gouging on chocolates for days later, but keep them in the freezer, you're going to want them at some point.
Yeah. That's a top tip. I think without a huge hulking turkey carcass that, it has to be kind of rendered down in this sort of butchery way. Vegan food is really easy for kind of portioning and freezing. And I remember, I think last year that's what we ate our Christmas dinner and then just froze everything that was left over. And left it in there for a few weeks until it was like a massive treat to bring it out again. And kind of have it all over again, rather than getting fed up with it.
Bearing in mind as well that for most of us, shops are open. Petrol stations are open on Christmas Day. Like my local corner shop is open on Christmas Day. I don't think there doesn't need to be this frantic buy-in that is geared towards one day. I think if anything, you're probably better off under-buying than what you are over-buying.
You're absolutely right. And, a great centerpiece for any Christmas dinner is Pringles and Tango. There you go, Lucy. Have a good Christmas and, kudos to you for doing it on a budget. Simon finally says, I'm making a Seitan turkey this year. Wish me luck. Oh, good luck. Will you send us a picture? I'm going to have a go at a Seitan turkey, I think, this year. I love making Seitan. Dig out the episode where we talked about making it. It was good. Anyway, he says, however, it's just me and my husband, so I know there will most certainly be leftovers from this. I would love some vegan turkey recipes for the next day. Thank you. Laura?
I think using... firstly, good luck, Simon.
Yeah. You've got this.
I've got faith in Simon.
Do you feel like there's a business, there's a gap in the market for turkey-shaped moulds for vegans to thumb, not roast and seitan mix into?
Yeah, God, it must exist somewhere.
Yeah.
But I think using the seitan in the same way that you would turkeys, using it to make sandwiches the next day, to having curry to make yourself another roast dinner, to almost sort of treat it as a cold cut as well, have it with salads, whatever. Actually, that question about the charcuterie board, you could put it on a charcuterie board, couldn't you, the next day as well, and have a Boxing Day charcuterie board. I do like that word, charcuterie.
Yeah. It's a great word.
It's a great word. So I think treating it as if you would a meat, really.
Yeah. Good top tip. Just having it there to pick at. When I've made seitan and you've got a big lump of it, people just walk past and they just pick at it.
Now you got me thinking, if you had pastry, you could do like sausage rolls.
Yes, I've done that too. That's a great idea. Yeah, sausage rolly things. Maybe charcuterie traditionally being cold cuts of meat. maybe vegans should have charcuterie, sauerkraut, charcuterie. Anyway,
nice.
I'm sorry, I'm losing it. I need more sleep. Day.
So to be honest, I would be very happy just to eat it in sandwiches with lots of gravy and applesauce. Like I don't think it gets any better than that, really. Yeah. So I'd just be happy with it like that. But as you mentioned earlier, these things, they freeze really, really well. So I'd probably be inclined to freeze it and then bring it out in a month's time or something like that, and then start having it, because you can get a bit sick of it after the first day, and then you could do anything with it, as we mentioned before, putting it in a frittata. Putting it in cooked salads as well would be really, really lovely. But yeah, I mean, for me, to be honest, like the best thing is to just eat it in a sandwich with applesauce. Applesauce, I have to do fresh applesauce as well.
Can't we? I mean, are you a mayonnaise person?
Now I am. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah. I wasn't in my previous life as a non-vegan. I didn't like cheese either. Would you believe?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I love it now. But yeah, love a bit of mayonnaise, but not with turkey. It's going to have to be freshly made applesauce.
Day, I guess we just flew too close to the sun. Nikki, what would you do with your leftover seitan?
Well, as I'm also a huge sandwich and bread fan, I think I would definitely turn it into sandwich, but maybe something a bit more exciting. So I'm thinking something like a nice Vietnamese banh mi with pickles and satay sauce.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think would be amazing, because you also want something quite exciting, or if it was on Boxing Day, for example, and fun. Or I think I'd probably make some tacos with some refried beans and slaw. And again, it's quite fun sharing food.
Top tips.
Those are my thoughts.
Those
or curry or chili, obs.
Sure. Well, I love all of those ideas, and I hope everybody has a good time. I think this episode is going out on Christmas Eve, so we're kind of on the brink of kicking all of this off, and yet staring full on into the dregs of Christmas. So I hope the interim goes well for everybody listening. Before you guys go, just tell us where people can find you and your work. Laura, let's start with you.
What happened to the tofu question?
We're not doing it anymore because, we've had so many repeat customers, including yourself, Laura, and Nikki. We used to do a thing, Day, where we'd ask, what do you do with tofu? And Laura liked it and would sing the jingle. It was magnificent.
What do you do?
There it is. You see? And it was great. But we started, once you've heard people saying, oh, there's this stuff called kalanamak. It's black salt and you can put it in a scramble. And once you've had 35 people saying that, I feel like people are probably like, okay, we know what you do with tofu. So we sort of dropped it.
Oh,
but maybe we'll pick it up again. Maybe we'll pick it up again.
We could have what do you do with tempeh.
No, we couldn't. No, we absolutely could not. Bin it. It would be the same every week. Bin it. Flush it down the toilet and cut out the middleman.
All right, so where to find me?
In Dubai.
At the moment, in Dubai. You can find
Can't
me
miss
in
her.
Dubai.
Yeah.
Ordinarily, you can find me in the reduced section, down aisle 2. But I also, social media, reduction_radar and the number 1, that's Instagram. And I've got a blog, which is www.reductionradar, again, the number 1.wordpress.com. And I host a podcast, All Right Raiders. So just search All Right Raiders and it'll come up somewhere.
Fantastic.
In one of your preferred search engines.
Love them all. Nikki, what about you?
Rebel Recipes, basically, in all social media channels, and blog and everything. And also, I must mention, my new book is out on Tuesday. So
amazing.
It's called My Vegan Year. So you can find me there as well, kind of.
Oh, cool. What's My Vegan Year about? I mean...
well, the clue's kind of in the title.
I mean, it was kind of a dumb question, but you know, what's the format?
The format is sort of how to live as a vegan for a whole year, and so there's loads of seasonal recipes, covers all sort of celebrations, and there's also lots of nice lifestyle content like learning how to grow your own veg and how to do things seasonally. But it's aimed at young adults and families again.
Sounds fantastic. Actually, I couldn't live as a vegan for a year. I tried going vegan and I ate nothing but juice and lettuce, and I actually got really ill. These people. And Day, where can people find you and your work?
So just search for The Vegan Chef School. So our website is theveganchefschool.com, and we're on Facebook and Instagram with the same name. So yeah, we're easy to find.
Awesome. And you do classes and stuff, right?
So we do courses.
Right.
Yeah, so our main course is the chef course. So I teach people how to become vegan chefs.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that sounds
mainly.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to be a vegan chef.
Be a vegan chef.
I want to be a vegan chef. Thank you all for a great listen. Don't forget, if you want to email us, you can. It's podcast@veganlifemag.com. We'd love to hear from you. And if you've tried any recipes from any of the podcasts, we'd love to see a picture. Also, you can follow us on Instagram. It's veganlife_podcast. Veganlifemag.com is where you can look at more stuff from the magazine. You can buy a subscription if you want, or you can go to the shop. You're probably climbing the walls already, aren't you? And well, that's it. Will that do? That'll do. Of course it will. That's it. We'll see you next time. From me, Jake Yap. Have a wonderful Christmas if you haven't already. Well, have another one next year, whenever it is. Just have it. All right. Bye.
This has been a Swanburst Media production.